So one option is don't build that project. And you could have other options. Do the interchange at Fremont, but don't do the braided ramp. Except that there's no cut-through traffic. Except that your consultants were, I'll think of a charitable word. I can't think of one right now, okay? Or don't do any of the project, save it. Because if you're going to do it with no right-of-way impacts, you're not going to do anything at all, quite frankly, functionally. At best, you then have $150 to $200 million left, right? Stop, cold turkey today. Now the question then becomes, can you plow all that money into the stub project and get that done? We'll look at that math. My initial reaction is no, not as proposed. That is not enough money to complete what has been proposed in 2030. Because that's how far. That stub project is even more behind, with no reviews by any agency of any consequence. This process is literally beginning, and the city's own projection is it will be done in 2030 plus. I have a green here saying maybe with a different concept. I mean, $200 million is not bad money. Although remember, it has devalued in purchasing power, right? This is still nominal dollars. You can still do something, but not the same project. And who is going to dream up a different concept? The same people who rode the car into the ditch? The same brainiacs who we hired to advise us? It's like going to a doctor and saying, you need quadruple bypass surgery, trust me. Most people will say, you know what, I want to get a second opinion on this if you cut me open, because I need a second opinion. We never got second opinions. We stuck with the same thing because, and it would be interesting if we stuck with the same thing if they understood what they're doing. I have emails saying our staff doesn't understand. Blind leading the blind would, with no pejorative implications, lead to a better outcome. And remember, even if we do this, of course, there's nothing left for the Atlantic and Garfield interchanges, right? You know how many, this is Caltrans numbers, how many cars go on Atlantic and Garfield, a little bit to the east on the city? Over 200,000 cars a day. If you've been on Atlantic and Garfield in the wrong times, you go through 3-4 lights at Valley easily before you can cross that. That traffic is not going to get mitigated. This is not all on the west side of the city. Some of us live in the middle in this eastern part of the city. Nothing left. Has any of this been communicated to citizens? No. The last presentation on any of this was to the Alhambra Unified School District in early 2023, about 3 years ago. So let's go back to this. So now, according to what I'm saying, this is a doomed case with no money, right, as proposed. We maybe salvage something and come back to this. So what is this proposal here? This is our arterial proposal from 2020. It's a sketch. No engineering on this, just a concept. And the concept looks pretty good. And the idea is you wouldn't come off the 10 with the freeway to Valley, you would slow down with an arterial. You would reduce the 6 lanes between 3 and 3 to 4 lanes. You'd have a nice median, raised median, lots of vegetation. You would have on this side a parkway, a shoulder, and this is, by the way, east, right? This is looking to Valley. You would have a bike and a pedestrian. That's the road bifurcates. Correct? They use that as a boneyard and they use that as for construction projects. But the arterial will actually join everything together. They will be side by side. So about half a mile or more of real reconstruction and road changes, alignment changes have to be made, okay? The beginning, when you come off the 10, you might have reuse of the pavement. But after a certain point, that dies because that bifurcation, that fork has to be closed, and you have to do some real construction, okay? Not funny hand wavy stuff because the two are on two different sides. All right. And the scope. We also have to deal with Ramona Boulevard here. And we want to connect bike and pedestrian stuff, which is great. No question. It's a wonderful thing. But by the time you add, this is the stub, you'll have to do some things on, this is again by the city's own concept, and has been for a while. Reconfigure Ramona Boulevard, frontage road, then of course the main 4-lane arterial, bike connections, so on and so forth. So this is taken from the city's documents about some of the scope items that have to be done to implement this project. You have to convert, right at the 10 freeway, a signalized interchange when you come off, okay? You have to relocate certain connectors between 10 and 710. You have to add, my good friend, sound walls and retaining walls. And those retaining walls on Ramona are not going to be easy because they have some hillsides there. You have to realign the stub, of course, from 6 to 4 lanes, add the bike and pedestrian lanes, regionally connect them, landscaping, shoulder, parkway, add the 40-foot median, Ramona road extensions, and more. So what is the city's completion of this? 8 of 2031, another ribbon cutting. 67 months, about 5.5 years, where nothing has begun, is a pipe dream. We've spent more than that for the Fremont interchange, and we've gotten nothing. But look at the budget. I've told you what the budget for this is, right? You remember? 62.4, I said 63, rounded up. That they can do everything for $64 million to $63 million. Okay, same thing. Environmental documents, engineering documents, these are city's own numbers, about $8.5 million. Little bit of right-of-way, not a lot, not like the other project. $2 million and change. Construction support, project management, which is about 10% of construction capital, which is $47 million to do all that scope that I just told you in 2031. When you're spending more than $30 freaking million trying to refurbish a 17,000 square foot building on Shore Avenue. I mean, we must look like idiots. So I did my own math. I carried over some of this again to 2030. I left some of these line items the same. I escalated the construction support to 10%. And here's what I'm coming up with. Again, these are not bid documents. These are my estimates. In a couple of the important ones supported and other ones with some reasonable guesses. Signalized interchanges. This is a massive signalized interchange between 10 and the arterial in 710. And then the connector realignments, I have only $5 million for each of them. We can't buy a house for $5 million in most parts of this city now. The 4 lane miles of arterial, I have 100 million. This is a big line item. Let me explain that. Let me explain that this way. This is a recent cost estimate from a simple, what is called an auxiliary lane on the 91 freeway for about less than a mile. Less than a mile. An auxiliary lane is basically you add a lane where a car that comes in from an on-ramp stays on the right side and gets off to the next exit. No right-of-way issues, none of that stuff, and the cost is about 100 million per mile. The simplest mile. Why? And we have about 4 miles of that, right? With 4 miles of arterial. And I'm saying, you know what? Most of the pavement can be used, but the last part cannot be used. Those arterials are going off in different direction next to the Caltrans yard, right? So I said, even though the Caltrans estimate is 100 million per mile, I'm going to use 100 millions for all 4 miles here, because we have to do a big chunk of that where the wishbone splits. All right? Sound walls, retaining walls, similar estimates to what I showed for the other project. The median, I'm putting $25 million. That is not a simple median, by the way, okay? It is going to be raised. You have to bring a whole bunch of dirt. You have to have vegetation. You have to have irrigation. This is an active median and will be a mile long. I'm not saying it's going to be $100 million. I am estimating a quarter of that for that entire length. In 2030, by the way. I'm sorry. Bike and pedestrian lanes, these I have estimates for. Okay. Caltrans did estimates for bike lanes. About $4.5 million per mile. We have 2 bike lanes, right? And we have escalated the cost. It's about $10 million. The pedestrian lanes, I'm just saying half of that. Landscaping, 5. And the valley end also has to have signalized interchanges. Those 2 north-south things have to come together. And all of that means we are over $200 million. There's other scope, of course, that I cannot estimate. Over $200 million. Remember, the budget left, if you took everything out, is what? I told you that before. It is $150 to $200 million, depending on whether you do anything on Fremont. You don't have money to do this. The same scope. You can do something different and squeeze in something with this money, but you can't do the same thing. So what is the conclusion? Cannot complete the stub as currently designed. But wait, and I won't test your patience more because a few more minutes. There is more. We don't even own the land on the stub. Caltrans still owns it. Unlike Pasadena's section of the stub, that was conveyed to Pasadena. We don't have that luxury. Caltrans still owns that. So we are waiting on Caltrans's generosity to turn over the land to us for nothing. And I don't think that we're going to get there. Why? Because one other player has plans for that stub. Cal State LA. How do I know that? Because there is a committee called the Durazo Committee that met from roughly October of 2024, about a year, and produced a final report that is supposed to go to the legislature. That brought a bunch of stakeholders, and they all sat around, and we had one council member who was representing Alhambra for the whole time, and along with staff, city manager, and so on. And they produced a report. In early December, I went to city manager and said, hey, I want to talk about the report. This report is not helpful to Alhambra, okay? But then funny things happened. You go to the website today, the final report, which I downloaded, by the way, okay? In fact, I sent it off to the mayor. He has it. It's not there anymore. Gone, missing. Just not there. The Cal State LA General Plan, which was identified as a key resource, missing. And they made a presentation that I thankfully downloaded. Even that is missing. This could be all coincidence. And
websites are these missing now?
South 710 stub, okay? That website. Now, I haven't done the Google Wayback Machine and forensics on that as to which day they disappeared, but they're not there right now, Lou. But here's the funny part. The presentation I downloaded from Cal State LA has a very different vision of the stub. Does it look like anywhere like our stub? You see a freaking freeway still there. Cal State LA plastered with buildings. They have their little bike and pedestrian. They have another road over here. This doesn't look anywhere like our 4-lane arterial stub. It doesn't. Their report is very nice. The report says, we welcome our neighbors from Alhambra to come to us for wellness and fitness and Pilates and yoga and all of that good stuff. I have a copy of the report, by the way, okay? Even though it's not on the website. Grassroots Alhambra members got it, but I have a copy. And this is their vision because the current president of Cal State LA, bless him, wants to convert the campus to a residential campus, not a commuter campus. So the report still has a picture of Alhambra's arterial. No real affirmation that that's Alhambra's plan and it's going to get precedence over other people's plans. And that was my concern. I went to the city manager and said, aren't you going to ask for clarification to the legislature that, hey, this is not exactly recognizing our plan that we've been working on with our sketches for 5 years? And she said, no, it's all a done deal. We can't really comment on it. And I'm waiting to make my own comments to city council when that shows up to city council. And she's assured me it is going to show up one of these days as a consent agenda item. That's one thing I've learned through this process. The real fun stuff is buried in the consent agenda. The hearings are red herrings to hide what is really being pushed through in the freaking consent agenda. But not to worry. City manager told me, Ron, the EIRs, there'll be an EIR proposed for the project at Fremont. There'll be another EIR for the proposed stub. The public will get a chance. You will get a chance to come and say how the EIR should be done. My friends, this is where you have to trust me. I've been doing EIRs for 35 years. That's not how it works. Both EIRs will be under the lead agency of Caltrans, not City of Alhambra. They will decide how the scoping meeting is done. They have spent 4+ years approving our cockamamie project at Fremont with the braid. They will, and then what are we supposed to do in a room full of this? Say, oh, you know what, we don't like the braid. Oh, we don't like this, we don't like that. And Caltrans, and Cal State, and Caltrans rather, don't get my Cal's confused, will say, come up with your reasoned designs, okay? Why? And we're supposed to spend our resources as public members within 30 days to come up with fully fleshed out designs that our consultants have been spending millions of dollars on. That's not how EIRs work. And if you believe that, I got a braided ramp to sell you. They will solve nothing. So what happens next? Part 5 will be short, okay? I brought you up to today. There are 2 questions. One is a look-back question. Is it right that the same people who have wasted our money should be rewarded as they have been? You say no.
Hey, bad job doesn't mean you get a reward.
So you should ask me this point. What do you mean they have been rewarded? Well, our consultants have been rewarded. We sent out a flyer that even though they have not performed, they got, buried in the consent agenda, an extra $4 million. Not only have they wasted millions, they get more in contract increase when they had no reason to. They still had money on the contract. In 2024, we got, and with no discussion by council, in 2024. None. We have tape. They got $4 million. We don't think that's right. That's in the flyer. Facts. These are not my facts. These are city's own contract facts. And it's a damn shame. Somebody else has been rewarded as well. We'll save that for later. Looking forward, what should City Council do presented with this disaster? Well, I mean, the first is stop living in make-believe land, right? You've been getting all your information, such as it is, from your staff with no independent assessment by a third-party consultant, by anybody, even citizens raising questions. You're so full of yourself that you need to stop living in make-believe land. We are not idiots. Second, stop blaming others. It's not Ron Sahu's or grassroots fault because he's asking questions. It is not your job to protect your precious consultants so they are not asked questions. These are big boys and girls who earn millions of dollars, they can stand and ask and be asked and answer questions. Take responsibility. You appoint the city manager. City manager hires somebody. The buck stops at city council. And you know what? 241 million bucks also stop at city council. And third, stop playing non-stop politics. Non-stop. You show up in that job, you get $500,000 a year, and all you do is you do politics. Yes, you do a few things. Of course, not everything in the city is falling apart. The garbage is collected. The ACT bus runs on time. Thank goodness APD and fire respond. But we would expect that as a minimum. This is not the place to enumerate that in the last 8 years on all of the big issues, beyond the run-of-the-mill issues, development and RENA, contamination in the south of the city not being addressed, citizens who are even on commissions being treated like, oh, you fill in the blank. I was on 2 commissions.
Say that again, please.
Citizens who are on commissions have very little power. You to even ask questions. Commission meetings get canceled left and right. I can go on and on. I can prosecute this on and on. And this is not a one-off. This has happened to be $100 million off. So this is just not a full list. So let me come back to this. And this might seem utterly harsh, but I will have to say it. The city is being and has been run for the benefit of a very small club. It is working for somebody. And for these folks, everything is working. They want stability in that position. They said so when they gave the city manager a long-term contract. They said, we like stability. But I have a question to those people. What use is stability if citizens are getting shafted? What use is stability to the average tax-paying Joe whose money has been squandered? This is the distortion. And it dawned on me, you know what? It is working for a few people. It's a club. That doesn't mean it's working for most people. And don't even get me started on the chumps that we are who are barely tolerated and disrespected when we ask simple questions. Whether you're a commissioner, whether you're an average citizen trying to get a permit, whether you're raising an issue about a bus route, whatever the beef is, customer service is not the watchword of the management of this fine and fair city. So you can now say, Ron, tell us what you really feel. How you really feel about things, right? These are not the only shenanigans. Even in the 710 stuff, there's more shenanigans. We get Caltrans many years ago bought 500 houses along the Meridian route. They don't need them, they're selling them off. We should be getting a big chunk of that money. We get a tiny amount of that money. Because our brilliant leaders agreed to a formula that absolutely shafts us. That's a shenanigan. And there are plenty more.